Welcome back to the Republic Brothers Podcast. I'm Mike, he's Matt, and this is episode 24. Today is January 4th, 2026. New year, new chaos, and we have a packed episode today. We're starting off light with something fun, then we pivot into some politics and policy, Eric Swalwell's latest campaign promise, Virginia's new law trying to cap kids' social media time, and a viral Minnesota daycare fraud story that's blowing up online. And then we go international, Iran protests, and a major Venezuela update. Let's get started. All right, let's start the show with something fun today. Everyone argues about what mattered in pop culture this year, so we asked ChatGPT to rank the 20 biggest pop culture moments of 2025 purely on popularity. Not quality, not personal taste. This is just reach, attention, and how impossible it was to avoid. This is the stuff you couldn't escape even if you wanted to. So we're going to start at number 20 and work our way up. Number 20 was celebrity brand overload. By 2025, people officially hit saturation. Every actor, athlete, or influencer has a brand now, and the backlash became its own storyline.
Many good examples. Dr. Phil's media company filed for bankruptcy. Kate Moss's also went under. And we've all seen the sales plummeting for Prime Energy, which is Logan Paul and KSI.
Yep. Next up, number 19, Skims goes legit. Kim Kardashian crossing fully into performance and athletic wear wasn't just fashion. It was a business milestone people actually took seriously. Number 18, nostalgia backlash peaks. Reboots still made money, but we're out of ideas became a meme, and audiences finally started pushing back. Number 17, award shows go TikTok first. Fewer people watched live TV last year. Way more people saw clips, and shows stopped pretending that TV mattered more than the algorithms. Number 16, Adele steps back. No album, no rollout, just a quiet acknowledgement that an era might be closing. That alone made headlines. Number 15, Billie Eilish reinvents herself. New sound, darker tone, big engagement. Not a shock, but still a moment. Number 14, celebrity AI deepfakes. Fake endorsements, fake voices, fake videos, and at some point, everyone realized, oh, this might be a problem.
Scammers using AI managed to take more than $5 billion from their victims by pretending to be celebrities. AI deepfakes are a big problem.
The biggest one I see is like Facebook Reels or TikTok. It's the same one of somebody trying to sell something, and they're using Joe Rogan's voice. And it always starts with the clip from Joe Rogan's show saying, oh, you got to take a look at this. You got to take a look at this. And then it cuts to something else, even though that was never actually something that was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
I saw a few where people were pretending to be Taylor Swift and asking people for a little bit of a change that they'd repay later. I think you and I are both probably in the same boat. I'm not delusional enough to think Taylor Swift is ever calling me, even if Travis Kelce didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Next, we got number 13, The Bear, Season 4. Still stressful, still loud, still memes everywhere. The show people love to say they enjoy while being visibly anxious. I have not started watching it yet, but I do plan to. Next up, number 12, I believe it's called Shogun. I have no idea what this is. The rare prestige show that broke containment. Suddenly everyone was talking about it, not just TV critics. Number 11, AI-generated music goes mainstream. Fake songs sounded real enough to chart. Artists panicked, labels sued, and nobody knew where this was headed.
Yes, AI is taking over. It's being used to make fake movie trailers as well. Some of which I will admit are quite funny. If you've ever seen one called Finding Milk, you would know why.
Sounds interesting. Number 10, we got Mr. Beast goes Hollywood scale. YouTube officially stopped being the internet and started competing with legacy media on its own terms. Number 9, Oppenheimer wins the Oscars. The final victory lap of Barbenheimer. Nolan cleans up. Memes retire honorably. Number 8, Beyonce drops Renaissance, Act 2. Instant discourse, fashion, genre arguments, cultural essays. Same as always, just louder. Number 7, Apple Vision Pro. Almost nobody owned one. Everyone had an opinion. Price shock, demos, memes, huge impact without mass adoption. Number 6, the TikTok ban showdown. Creators panicked, politicians postured, users doom-scrolled while arguing about free speech in China. Number 5, Barbie 2 announcement. One headline, months of discourse, proof that Barbie still prints cultural relevance on demand. Number 4, the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar feud. This wasn't just a rap beef, it was a timeline war. Diss tracks, reaction videos, think pieces, nonstop, and of course the Super Bowl halftime show last year. Number 3, Deadpool and Wolverine. Marvel finally figured it out again, R-rated, self-aware, and nostalgic in a way people actually wanted. Number 2, Dune Part 2. It was IMAX dominance, fashion influence, meme economy, a real blockbuster that felt big in a way movies haven't lately. And number 1, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Concerts, film releases, Grammys, relationships, and football. So Matt, that's the list. The 20 biggest pop culture moments of 2025 ranked purely by popularity according to ChatGPT. Honorable mention goes to the thing that all the kids are saying, mine included. 6'7". It's annoying when everybody else is saying it, but it's funny when you say it. I kind of get why they're all saying it.
It's just annoying. I can't say anything else about it. It means absolutely nothing. It has no connection to anything. It's just annoying.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say that I can't tell you much of anything about most of the top 10?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'd say maybe half of it.
I mean, I know about the TikTok ban, but other than that, we know a little bit about Taylor Swift, but most of this I had no idea.
I mean, obviously, I knew about, The Bear season 4, the memes and the AI stuff, the TikTok stuff, obviously Drake and Kendrick Lamar, because of last year's Super Bowl. Other than that, there's not a whole lot on here that I really was privy to. So, interesting list.
I find the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar part a little interesting. Most of the black community kind of sided with Kendrick Lamar because he has the rap sheet, and as his song says, he's like them, and Drake is not one of us. But when you consider the rap sheets, I would side with Drake just because he's lived a bit of a smarter life.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's move to our first main topic. So California gubernatorial candidate Eric Swalwell promised last Wednesday to revoke the driver's licenses of masked ICE agents. This is exactly like when you were in high school and the guy or girl running for class president would say, "If you vote for me and I win, no more homework." Swalwell says if Trump is going to send ICE agents to chase immigrants through the fields they work, he's going to make them take off their masks and show their faces. He then says, quote, "If you're going to wear a mask and not identify yourself, you're not going to be eligible to drive," end quote. First question that comes to mind, if they don't identify themselves, how will you know whose license to take, Eric? Aside from the fact that you don't need a California driver's license to drive in California, this was a pretty dumb thing to promise just to get votes.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. As governor of California, you can't revoke driver's licenses from other states. All this is about, though, is getting votes. And someone should tell Eric Swalwell that these agents don't want to wear masks. They wear the masks so left-wing nuts don't dox them, which then leads to harassment and assaults on the agents and their families. If the left would stop targeting the agents for doing their jobs, they would voluntarily take the masks off. It's 2026. People do not want to wear face masks. But that goes back to how different sides view law and order. Republicans think crossing the border illegally is a crime and you should be deported. It's seen as unfair to those following the laws while you try to take a shortcut. The left thinks that people are victims and the law should not matter to them since they are oppressed. If you commit a crime, you are the victim, not the actual victims who suffer because you broke the law.
Yeah, the whole thing seems ridiculous in and of itself, but what can you do? It is California. All right, let's move on to some social media and a new law in Virginia that's about to change how kids use the internet. This new law went into effect January 1st, and the state is putting hard limits on how much time kids can spend on social media, and it's already setting off a big legal and political fight. Virginia has passed a new law aimed squarely at kids and social media. Under this law, anyone under the age of 16 will be limited to 1 hour per day per social media platform by default. That means 1 hour on Instagram, 1 hour on TikTok, 1 hour on Snapchat, not unlimited scrolling anymore unless a parent steps in and changes it. The key word there is default. Parents can override the limit if they want. They can raise it, lower it, or shut it off entirely. But the state's position is that the baseline should be restricted, not open-ended. To make this work, the law requires social media companies to verify users' ages, and that's one of the most controversial parts. Platforms will have to figure out whether someone is under 16 and then enforce these time limits automatically. Virginia lawmakers say this is about kids' mental health, attention spans, and the addictive design of social media platforms. They argue that apps are engineered to keep kids scrolling for as long as possible and that parents are constantly playing defense against billion-dollar tech companies. Critics, though, see something very different. Tech companies and free speech groups argue this law opens the door to government control over online behavior, raises serious privacy concerns, and could force age verification systems that collect more personal data and not less. There's also a big constitutional question here. Several tech groups are already challenging the law in court, arguing that limiting access to speech, even for minors, crosses a legal line. And here's the bigger picture. Virginia isn't alone. States across the country are experimenting with ways to regulate social media for kids, and this law could become a template if it survives legal challenges.
This almost certainly won't work, in my opinion. While the larger, more popular platforms will put in age verification systems that actually do work, it just drives kids to newer, smaller, more dangerous platforms that don't have as much resources to verify someone's age. Those platforms are going to be more dangerous if kids go to it because the bigger sites like Facebook or Instagram are restricted. I do think it is a bit ridiculous to make every single platform create a system to verify someone's age. It's theoretically possible, but the simpler answer to this is the manufacturers. Have the manufacturers of phones put restrictions in themselves. It's easier to restrict access on the device side. When a phone is purchased, you simply register that phone to a person who's underage and have the device restrict which websites are accessible and for how long. The most extreme example of that is North Korea. Phones in North Korea can only access a few thousand websites in the world, and they do not allow you to download any new apps. Obviously, you don't need to go to that extreme. We were both kids growing up with technology. I think you know, Mike, it's not that difficult to lie and get access to these sites. We have probably all at one point lied about our age on the internet. Should there be restrictions on social media? I believe so. There is a lot of garbage on the internet, and social media is a big part of that. But given this law lets parents override the default restrictions, I don't see anything changing. Most parents are going to let their kids play on the phone as long as they want to keep them entertained.
Yeah, so I did a little bit more research on top of this, and here's what the stats say. So for teenagers aged 13 to 17, roughly 90 to 95% of U.S. teens use at least one social media platform, meaning they have their own account. YouTube is the most used. About 90% say they use it. Around 63% use TikTok, 61% use Instagram, and 55% use Snapchat. Many of these teens are on social platforms every day or even almost constantly. For younger kids under 13, even though most social apps are set at a minimum age of 13, studies find that nearly 40% of children ages 8 to 12 are already using social media. Again, meaning they have their own account. Some research suggests that a majority of early adolescents under 13 report having at least one social media account in certain samples. And surveys show that 18 to 19% of tweens, ages 9 to 12, use social media every day.
And I just wanted to say, as a little reminder on these stats, they are almost certainly on the low end. Most kids with very strict parents would say they don't use it to avoid trouble at home. So you have to keep in mind, this is the percentage that admit to it. There's almost certainly at least some who do use them but lie to avoid trouble.
So when states like Virginia talk about limits, they're not targeting a small group. They're talking about something that's already a daily habit for the vast majority of kids and teens. I just don't see how this is going to be enforced. I don't even want to aim this strictly at kids. I think everyone is on their phone too much, myself included. It's very easy to start scrolling on your phone and not realize that you haven't looked up in 2 hours. In my opinion, though, staring at your phone for 2 hours straight is no different than staring at your TV for 2 hours straight. And I mean this for adults, not necessarily kids. It's a screen no matter what the size is. I am curious to see how the big tech companies fight this because I kind of see their point. I am going to lean more on the law side of this, though. If the courts turn this law around when these companies fight back, I will not be surprised. I think it's more on the parents to monitor and determine their kids' screen time and what apps they can and can't use. It's something that kids have to earn. It's a trust thing, and that is a case-by-case basis with each parent and each kid.
For me, it's more about the parents. As I said earlier, this will be very difficult to enforce. It would be better to have your kids go outside and play, but given the habits are already set for a lot of these kids, it will be very difficult to change that, law or no law. When you factor in the override option for the parents, I would imagine most will use it. I would slightly disagree with the TV part you mentioned there. Yes, a screen is a screen, but the stuff on TV is usually not as bad content-wise for the kids. Some of it's garbage, but kind of like your phone, it is really on the parents to monitor what your kid is watching.
Well, that's why I draw the differentiation with the TV and the screen time for kids and parents. There's a lot of bad stuff that's on your TV that is in these kids' TV shows that you don't realize. It is crazy. I mean, there's a whole section on some of these streaming platforms that you would be shocked the stuff that is on there that's in the kids section, like I said. But when you're an adult and the stuff you're watching on your phone, you're controlling it. All these social media platforms have algorithms and they show you the content that you repeatedly watch. Just like when you watch TV, you are repeatedly watching the same things over and over again, or the same kinds of things over and over again. So that's why I say for adults, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, but it's easier to control what the child sees. You're not doom scrolling on Netflix. Yes, some of the content is garbage and you have to screen it before your kid sees it. But when you start a TV show, unless the kid has the remote, they're not changing the channel. So it's easier to leave the child alone for a few minutes and then not stumble into something else. Yes, we've all seen some garbage on Netflix, even in kids shows. But you can also see that and make sure that that's not what they're watching when you're in the room.
Even the TV shows, though, that they're watching on Netflix and the movies that they're watching, you're not sitting there and watching it the entire time. There's been several instances where I can say that my children have been watching a show that I thought was fine the whole time, and then it comes out later that there was something in one of the episodes and just nobody really caught it until one person just happened to catch that one moment where they say something that you're like, okay, that's not appropriate. But you're right. It is easier to control the content they're watching in a TV show or in a movie than it is the stuff that they're going to see on TikTok or scrolling YouTube shorts or things like that. But I think this whole thing just goes back to them trying to find some way to reel it back in, the amount of screen time that everyone uses. mainly kids in this instance. But like I said, I think it's a problem for adults and children how much time we spend in front of a screen.
I throw a simple question to you and then I'll answer it myself. Do you think this law in Virginia will help?
No, not at all. Nope. No chance, because just like you said earlier, everyone has lied on the internet about their age. As soon as you have kids log in and create an account, they can easily create one and say, oh, I am 18 years old. And unless the parent helps them make that account, they're never going to know it. And you don't even have to verify your age to get a Gmail account or something like that. You can put in whatever date you want, and then you can set up an account later on your own and sneak a new account in and just have the emails go to that other account. It's so easy to get around this.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that part. I don't think it'll make any difference. It might make a difference for a few parents who are able to hide the fact that there's an override option, but generally, I don't think it's going to do much.
All right, let's move on to our next point. This is a big topic. It's been going around on social media and all over the news for days now. A viral YouTube video by independent journalist Nick Shirley alleges that multiple child care centers in Minnesota receive millions in taxpayer-funded subsidies while appearing largely empty or inactive when visited. The video claims this amounts to massive fraud in daycare funding, widely sharing clips of sites with no kids present. One of the daycare center owners said Nick showed up at 10 or 11 a.m. and they weren't open yet. Why would a daycare center not be open at 10 a.m.? Am I missing something, or is that not when most people are at work and need childcare? Later, after the video, they claimed that their hours are 2 to 10, but then their official paperwork says that they're supposed to be open from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that in order for them to get this funding. There's all kinds of holes in this story. There's also security video going around showing people dropping their kids off at a daycare and then picking them up 5 minutes later. There's allegations that people were receiving kickbacks for signing their kids in, basically, and then just signing them right back out. Nick Shirley's video has drawn national attention, but Minnesota state officials are pushing back on the most dramatic claims. Minnesota's Department of Children, Youth and Families says previous inspections did not find evidence of fraud at the daycare centers highlighted in the video, noting regulators already visited these sites within the last 6 months.
It's worth noting that a lot of these daycares they visited have many different violations, but that did not stop the government from continuing to fund these daycares.
Officials say 2 of the featured centers had already closed before the video was filmed, and that inspections often occur during unannounced visits with children present at those times. The agency has launched additional unannounced checks to look into the concerns raised by the viral claims. Beyond the social media controversy, federal authorities are conducting broader fraud investigations in Minnesota, including by the FBI and Homeland Security. Agencies have deployed investigators to look at alleged misuse of federal funds tied to child care and other social service programs. This surge follows long-standing scrutiny of fraud schemes in the state, including a massive COVID-era fraud case involving the nonprofit Feeding Our Future, where prosecutors say hundreds of millions in aid were misused. FBI Director Kash Patel and others have suggested the viral daycare video may point to a wider fraud pattern, calling it the tip of the iceberg, though many details remain under investigation. The issue has quickly become political and sensitive. Republican lawmakers have criticized Governor Tim Walz, accusing him of not doing enough to stop fraud and demanding answers about daycare funding. Critics of the viral coverage warn it's fueling backlash against Minnesota's Somali community, as many centers highlighted are operated by Somali Americans. Community leaders and some daycare managers have pushed back against the fraud claims, saying the footage in the video was taken outside normal operating hours and that the centers do serve children. Whether this becomes a confirmed fraud scandal or just a high-profile controversy remains to be seen as the investigations continue.
It's also worth noting that it's not just daycares that are focused on in this video by Nick Shirley. It also looks at Somali-run healthcare businesses. One building they focus on in the video has 14 Somali-run healthcare facilities. Another building had 22 healthcare businesses running out of one building. But when Nick Shirley showed up in the middle of the day, there was nobody there. He asked to see some for healthcare and some for health insurance. Almost every time he is turned away. He only had one business take his information and provide him with paperwork for quotes. At the beginning of this video, they point out that the Somali community is very closed off. They do not want to talk to anyone outside of their own community, and they become very aggressive anytime someone asks basic questions.
So before I get your full take on this, I don't know if you've seen the video, but I have watched it. Nick knocks on the door of a few different places and says he wants to put his kid in daycare there, and they pretty much brush him off and tell him to get lost. One woman even tells him that she's scared of him because of his color. That seems a bit racist. They tell you how much each daycare center is receiving from the government, and not one time in the video do you see any kids. Some of the people even start tailing Nick to see where he goes next. When he gets to his next stop, there's a woman yelling, "Don't open up, it's ICE." You've probably seen the sign from one of the daycare centers where they misspelled learning for leering. They completely missed the N in the word learning. Someone sent that sign off to be made for the fake business and no one caught it somehow. The other thing I want to bring up real quick is on that leering center, did you see the front of the building? The front of the building was some kind of cafe or coffee shop or something like that. And I saw a photo online of their grand opening and a photo of Ilhan Omar in that cafe. It shares the same building as the Leering Center. I throw it to you, Matt. Did Nick uncover more Somali fraud in Minnesota? And at what point is Tim Walz going to be held accountable?
He absolutely did uncover fraud. On your previous point, yes, that was the definition of racism. She said he was scared of him because of his color. Imagine the role reversal on that. And they'd be coming after Nick with pitchforks. I have seen the entire video, and it is shocking. All credit to Nick for doing what the mainstream media failed to do, and that's real journalism. It looks like massive fraud, and it affects all of us, because some of the money sent to these daycares is federal tax dollars. They point out that many of these daycares have no children, and the vans they have for some of these facilities have not moved for as long as 6 months. All the daycares said they were open, but the doors were closed, and the windows have all been blacked out, so you can't see in. It's like that every day. Most of the daycare owners who did talk would just repeat the questions Nick asked, as if they didn't understand the language he was speaking. This is all about votes for Democrats, though. The Somali community votes as a bloc, so Democrats let this go because this will get their vote. The people of Minnesota can't do or say anything about this because they will be labeled racist. Now, I found it very interesting that the people who do come to confront Nick also become very agitated and aggressive when asked very simple questions. If you were running a legitimate business, you would not become angry if someone asked about your business. And the fraud is shocking. There's no kids. Reporting says now, though, that the Somali community is now taking their kids to these facilities to try and fool people who are keeping an eye on them. One of the individuals in the video who claimed to work at one of the facilities couldn't answer basic questions of where the kids are and how many kids there are. A woman shows up and says Nick simply can't enroll his kid here. As I said earlier, they are a closed-off community, and they actually start warning the other daycare owners that people are walking around checking. As you mentioned earlier, they were followed by some of the Somalis at one of the facilities. When they actually got to the Quality Leering Center, a white woman was standing outside the building recording and shouting that they shouldn't open up because it's ICE. At the end of the video, though, it's very interesting that Nick goes to talk to lawmakers, and the Democrats say it's everyone's fault, but they won't acknowledge that Minnesota is run by Democrats, not Republicans. The lawmaker they speak to at the end of the video gets flustered on his first question and runs away. When he walks after her with the mic up, she simply says, "Fraud is a problem in all 50 states, and that's all I have to say."
So did you see I guess it was a press conference or something where the woman was talking about she needs this child care and yada, yada, yada. And then she says, "I understand fraud is bad." And then she just stops and turns ghost white like, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that."
Yeah, I saw that. It's funny because she just said the part out loud that you're not supposed to acknowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard it, Mike, but I've heard it. Ilhan Omar has said it many times, that America was built on the backs of Somalis and that Somalis built America. Somali people didn't first get to the United States until the mid-1900s, a good 150 to 200 years after our founding. And if Somalis were great at building something, would Somalia be the dump that it is today? That's going to make some people really mad at me. But I don't care. It's the truth.
The other thing I want to bring up is the fake break-in at one of the centers that wasn't even in the video, where they said somebody broke in through the back wall and had busted in. They went through, I believe that I saw it was a dollar store was attached to it, like in the same building. So they broke into the dollar store, went past all the, electronics and the cash and all the merchandise in the dollar store to break into a daycare center and take paperwork. Is that not the dumbest thing you've ever heard?
It kind of reminded me of that episode of The Big Bang Theory where Penny accidentally shoots the couch with a paintball gun. And she suggests that they tell Sheldon someone broke in. And Leonard rightfully points out, just to shoot the couch with a paintball gun? It's very much like that. No criminal is breaking into a daycare center just to take the paperwork for the daycare. There's no upside in that for the criminal, so why would you do it? And also, yes, I did see that incident, and the police flat out said the daycare reported a break-in but said nothing was taken.
Yeah, that's the best part about the whole thing, is even law enforcement saying that there was no signs of forced entry. And the photo that they showed with the cinder blocks, like behind the wall, and someone did a video on it saying that you could see the cut marks through the wall. Like it was cut from inside, not outside coming in.
Well, they didn't want to commit the crime of breaking into the dollar store to break into their own store. So they just cut it from the inside. Contrary to popular belief, police aren't stupid. They can see basic things. And which way something falls is a big indicator. Well, given how much fraud there was in this case, this will absolutely be a topic of conversation going forward. But while we're on the healthcare topic, I just had to get your opinion on something, Mike. While I was at work last week, someone brought to my attention a healthcare issue. I was shocked to learn that teens gain access to their full rights, healthcare-wise, and it starts at the age of 12. Parents and or guardians are only given limited access, meaning some portions of the child's health record are no longer viewable for the parents. At age 16, all their health records are no longer viewable for the parents. The child has to sign a proxy waiver for the parents to view their health records. Again, age 16. Your child is responsible for their own health, making their own appointments, picking up prescriptions, and things like that. All of it. Your rights as a parent are basically over at 16 now. While you still have to pick up the check. A friend at work told me his wife found the Publix app on his 14-year-old daughter's phone. When his wife asked why she had it, she said it was so she could get her prescriptions. He pointed out his 14-year-old daughter doesn't have an ID, yet she was allowed to get her own prescriptions. We will put the information we're referring to in the description below. You, Mike, as a father to 3 children, lose access to test results for your child when they turn 12 years old. You can't even see their vitals or growth charts. But again, you have to pay the bill. I find it absolutely insane that we in the state of South Carolina think a child is capable of making the best decisions for their health when they're 12 years old. Mike, father of 3 young children, what are your thoughts on this as a dad?
Yeah, I'm with you. My first reaction to this is disbelief. I could not believe it when you sent this link to me. I have 3 small kids, and the idea that I lose access to their medical information at 12 years old is absolutely insane. 12, that's middle school. They still need permission to go on a field trip, but I'm supposed to believe they can fully manage their own healthcare? What bothers me the most about this is the disconnect. This sounds like a bunch of people who made this up don't have children. You're telling me that I'm financially responsible, legally responsible, and morally responsible for my child, but I'm locked out of the information needed to actually protect them. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, let's be honest. Most kids can't remember to bring their lunch to school, but at 16, they're supposed to manage their appointments, their prescriptions, their test results, and make medical decisions. That's not empowering kids. That is setting them up to fail. The prescription example is wild. A 14-year-old picking up medication without an ID while parents don't even know what's being prescribed. That crosses a line for me. That's not about privacy. That's about removing parents from the equation entirely. I get the argument for privacy, especially in sensitive situations, but there's a huge difference between protecting a kid's privacy and creating secrecy from their parents. Those are not the same thing, and the system seems to be pretending that they are. We don't let kids vote, we don't let kids sign contracts, buy alcohol, or even stay at home alone in some cases, but suddenly they're supposed to be trusted with medical autonomy? The logic to me just doesn't hold up. What happens when a kid ignores symptoms, skips meds, or misunderstands the instructions from a doctor and the parent never even knows? We're acting like this won't have any consequences. At the end of the day, I'm not asking to control every detail. I just want to be informed. If I'm responsible for my child's well-being and I'm paying the bills, I should not be blindfolded.
You have 3 kids. I have 0, and I'm the one that stumbled across this, and I was in disbelief like you were. And I don't even have children. I can't actually say what your response was when I sent it to you because that would get us banned.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to claim we are a safe for work podcast anymore.
It shocked me, and I don't even have kids. As you mentioned, if your kid were to not take their medications and fall apart, you would be the one held responsible. You could be charged with child endangerment or abandonment because your kids weren't taking the medications they were supposed to, or they were acting up in a way that you didn't know. But that's just the thing. They kept the information from you, but you're still responsible for it?
Yeah. Let's say they're on some kind of medication and they stop taking it. They go to school and act out, and then the teacher wants me to come in for a parent-teacher conference, and they start telling me, your kid's doing this, your kid's doing that. What's going on with them? I don't know.
And you're blinded to the fact that they could be suffering side effects from medications they are taking, or they might not be taking the medications to fix some of the issues. It's insane.
Yeah, there's a bunch of consequences to this. I hope that this doesn't stick around when my kids get to that age. But I can tell you right now for a fact, I know me and my wife will have probably the same response to this, is that when they do get to that age, I'm not asking my child for their medical information. I'm taking it. They're giving it to me.
And we are going to have as many different conversations as we can with our local elected officials. I have been sharing this with as many people as I can, hoping to get in touch with other districts' local officials. I hope we can get some on the podcast, or at least raise awareness for this. We'll see where it goes, but this is probably not the last time we talk about this.
All right, let's transition to Iran. I want to talk about the protests that are going on in Iran because this is not a one-day flare-up. This thing is spreading and it's starting to look familiar. It kicked off just a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, the trigger was pretty basic. Money. Inflation is brutal, food prices are out of control, and the Iranian currency has basically fallen off a cliff. People can't afford everyday life anymore, and eventually that pressure explodes. What really matters here is who started the protesting. This didn't begin with college kids or political activists. It started with shop owners, merchants, working people, the kind of folks who usually keep their heads down. When those people are willing to shut down their businesses and take to the streets, the situation is already bad. From there, it snowballed fast. Protests popped up in city after city. Students joined in, workers joined in, and before long, this stopped being about grocery prices and turned into something much bigger. People started chanting directly against the regime, against the leadership, against the entire system. That's always the moment when the government gets nervous, because now it's not about fixing the economy anymore, it's about legitimacy. And the response from the Iranian government has been exactly what you'd expect. Security forces moved in hard, protests were broken up. There are reports of people being killed and hundreds arrested. We don't get clean numbers out of Iran, but repression is clearly happening. At the same time, the regime is doing what it always does, blaming foreign actors, saying this is all stirred up by outside enemies. That's usually a sign they're feeling real pressure. The bigger problem is that none of the root issues have changed. Inflation is still sky high, sanctions are still crushing the economy, people are still broke. The government made a few cosmetic moves like swapping out officials, but protesters aren't buying it. They're saying this isn't about one bad policy, it's about the whole structure. Internationally, everyone's watching closely. The U.S. has warned against a violent crackdown, and anytime Iran gets unstable, the risk of things spilling beyond its borders goes up. So the real question now is whether this turns into another uprising that eventually gets crushed, or whether this one sticks around longer. Historically, the Iranian regime has survived protests like this, but each wave seems to get bigger and bigger. Then steps in Donald J. Trump. He posted on Truth Social a couple days ago, quote, "If Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter," end quote.
47 years of tyrannical, terror-sponsoring government is close to falling. Recent events in the Middle East have kind of broken their regional influence and destroyed their military. The economy is reeling. The currency in Iran is the rial. You need 1.42 million rial to have the equivalent of $1 US.
That's crazy.
Oil revenue is down, in large part thanks to Trump's sanctions and Trump willing to enforce them. Here in the U.S., we complained about 9% inflation year over year. Food prices in Iran are up 72% compared to this time last year. Add in the most important thing for human survival, water, months-long droughts, coupled with gross mismanagement of rivers, lakes, and underground wells, mean the country is basically out of water. All of that, but the government continues to say that they are at war with the West, in particular the U.S. and Israel, but also some European nations. We have now seen they are paper tigers. It took Israel 8 days to wipe out all of their military. Despite all that great Russian military equipment they have, our military walked in, bombed them, and left without them firing a shot at us.
So do you think the U.S. and Trump's backing is helping the protesters, or is it hurting them?
It's tough to say at this point, and it'll depend on how we help. The help must be in favor of the majority, though. Otherwise, you end up with a population that hates the U.S., because then you're seen as an oppressor as well. That could lead to another regime that is also hostile to the U.S. We already know the Iranian government is weak, so targeting their military would not be a tough thing to do for us. It could also come from the Israelis, though, who do not like the current regime. Keep in mind, the current Iranian constitution calls for the destruction of Israel. So a new regime with a new constitution who does not support terror cells in the region would be a welcome outcome for the Israelis. How far the Trump administration would go to support the protesters is unknown to me, but given recent events, it's safe to say he would be willing to make some bold decisions.
So what does success actually mean for the protesters here? What is their goal? What are they looking for?
I think the most likely definition of success would probably be regime change. The people are going to want radical changes because the system has been mismanaged for so long. Ayatollah Khamenei has been the leader since 1989, and not much has gone right for the country since then. It's tough for most Americans, I think, to really understand what some countries are going through. Things are very tough for the people of Iran. The government, nationally and locally, for the city of Tehran, which is the capital, has warned the water crisis is getting very bad. Water is more expensive than gas in the capital. You need water to survive, and that is now in short supply. Add in all the other factors like inflation and food prices, conflicts with neighboring countries where the regime is on the wrong side. The people can see it's not going well. The population of Iran may see this as the best chance to overthrow the government for a chance at democracy, or at least change. We have said on this podcast before, you never know the next thing will be better, but is it worth taking the risk that the next regime will be better than the current one? Given the gross mismanagement and very tough living conditions the civilian population is currently dealing with, it's clear at least some of them feel the answer is yes.
Here's the big question. What will the U.S. and Trump specifically do if Iran pokes the bear?
It's tough to nail down a specific target that they would hit. You could always go after the energy infrastructure, but that would hurt the civilian population, so that's unlikely. You may go after the nuclear sites again to try and set them back farther, but that may not be worth the effort. But we already saw how easy it was for Israel to decimate their military, and how easy it was for the U.S. to strike deep inside Iran. I would imagine it would be bad things for Iran if they did poke this bear. Keep in mind, Israel has penetrated the Iranian government with Mossad, their intelligence agency, to the deepest extent possible. They know exactly where all the leaders of the government are, and they share that information with the U.S. I don't think it would be a tough decision for Trump to strike inside Iran again. We know some in the U.S. will condemn anything Trump does, but I don't think that will stop him, as it hasn't in the past. Strikes on military targets are the easy option, but strikes that take out government officials also can't be ruled out.
Well, we touched on Iran a little bit. Obviously, there's going to be more news coming out about that. Let's move on to Venezuela.
Has anything happened with Venezuela?
A lot.
Yes, we have to talk about this. President Trump recently announced Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were captured and brought to the U.S., where they will face multiple criminal charges. To the surprise of no one, Trump did something, so Democrats have taken the other side. The other side is that of an autocrat who made his country poor and starving. It's worth noting here that Joe Biden offered a $25 million reward for Maduro's arrest, and if Biden had done what Trump did, these same politicians would be praising him for it. So what we do know is Trump sent in special forces to arrest Maduro. This was described as a law enforcement action, and no Americans were killed, while a few were wounded.
All right, so let's strip the politics out of this for a second. Was there actually a legal basis for what Trump did here?
On the point of law enforcement, it looks like there is legal standing to do what the Trump administration did. Now, that legal aspect is only in the US. I don't care about international law. When someone tells you this violated international law, I would ask which one, because international law is a joke with thousands of discrepancies. And when you consider there is no enforcement mechanism for international law, it simply does not matter. So we're really only going to look at this from a US perspective. It is no secret that Venezuela traffics drugs, and as the leader of the country that does it, Maduro can be held accountable for that. Maduro was indicted in the US for many crimes involved with drug trafficking. That is the part of this that gives the Trump administration some legal justification for the move. Trump's comments after the arrest of Maduro have muddied the waters a bit for his case, as regime change would fall outside of a law enforcement action. The other question that often comes up is whether Trump needed congressional approval for this. On that point, the answer is almost certainly a no. For law enforcement action, Congress is not needed. If this was done for regime change, then the answer is a bit unclear on what Trump could have done without congressional approval. The U.S. Constitution says, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the President can direct military action to protect Americans and defend our national security without congressional approval. Given how many die from the drugs that come from Latin America, you can see the justifications for slowing the flow of drugs to protect some Americans.
So now that Maduro's gone, what does Trump say actually happens next in Venezuela?
Well, we've heard from those in the administration that they're not going to reveal all of their next moves. I don't know if that's because they need secrecy to execute those ideas, or if they just don't know what the idea is, and they're still trying to figure that part out. President Trump has said law and order must be restored in Venezuela before a new leader can take over. But who that leader will be is an unknown. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said the vice president is an illegitimate leader. The opposition leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado, in Trump's own opinion, does not have the support of the people in Venezuela. Who the next leader will be at this point is unknown, and Trump himself has not said who he will support. President Trump did confirm that he was not concerned about the situation turning into a drawn-out conflict as Iraq and Afghanistan did, but the president stressed that Venezuela's economy is on the brink following decades of mismanagement by socialist rulers. That part is true. President Trump says the priority should be on stabilizing the nation. Where all of this goes, we do not know, but I believe we will find out in about 30 days. There is the potential this gets very bad, and very bad very quickly. Now, I just mentioned the new leader of Venezuela. Newly appointed leader Delcy Rodriguez was warned by President Trump that if she didn't fall into line with his vision for reform, she will likely suffer the same fate as Maduro. Rodriguez, who was vice president under Maduro, condemned the operation that saw Maduro captured. The Trump administration insists on free elections to be held, but given Rodriguez was a Maduro loyalist, it's tough to see how she can lead the country and get along with Trump. Trump has suggested the U.S. would carry out a second wave of military actions in Venezuela if he deemed necessary, and that does not rule out the possibility that a similar action could be taken to capture the new leader of Venezuela.
So, why exactly did we intervene? How does the regime in Venezuela affect the United States? I think that's the main thing that most people are missing in all this. Anyone who's bashing Trump for doing this right now obviously hasn't done any research, considering Biden's the one who put out the $25 million reward. The Venezuelans are celebrating in the streets and thanking Trump. Why are liberals so upset about this?
Many questions will be asked as to why this happened, and I'm just giving my own opinions on this, thinking more large scale. There are many points that can be made here. I do believe the law enforcement action was a valid reason enough to go forward with this when you consider all the factors. This was not just about arresting Maduro for drugs. This was a regime that was cozying up to China. That is what this really is about to me. When you look at a potential conflict with China in the Pacific, you can't ignore the Gulf of America. China was trying to gain influence in Venezuela, which could potentially lead to military assets in the country. Venezuela is less than 600 miles from Panama. So if China could prevent ships from crossing through the Panama Canal, that would lengthen response times for our military to get to the Pacific if China were to say, I don't know, invade Taiwan. The other aspect of this is oil, but not in the way you think it is. If China had assets in the Gulf region, it could shut down large portions of the U.S.'s oil production. The Gulf Coast forms the primary export and refining hub for the U.S. Offshore oil fields in the Gulf produce around 15% of total U.S. crude in recent years. Port Fourchon in Louisiana services 90% of the deepwater crude oil production. While only 15% of crude oil comes from the Gulf, a much larger portion transits through the Gulf Coast, particularly places like Corpus Christi and Houston in Texas. Most crude oil exports are also loaded in ports along the Gulf Coast. All of that will be known by the Chinese, and that is a good reason for them to cozy up to the Venezuelans. Venezuela is less than 2,500 miles from the coast of Texas, meaning intermediate-range ballistic missiles could reach American territory if stationed in Venezuela. This action by Trump ensures a stronger strategic positioning in the Pacific against China by ensuring it is far harder for China to disrupt our oil flows or our military movements in the Atlantic Ocean. If more oil is available to the U.S. and comes as a result of this, that is just a bonus.
So for people who don't follow foreign militaries closely, what is different about Venezuela's?
It's not as powerful as most people think it would be. And on a broader scale, it's worth noting for those that don't follow the news in a lot of other countries, when you look at militaries in South America, as well as some other nations in the world, you will notice a trend. They are not designed to fight wars abroad. Most militaries in South America, as well as many other nations, are designed to subdue their own population. They are there to ensure national security, not from the outside, but from those within. They have no power projection, and long-range capabilities aren't things that they really go after. The focus is often on population control, not what most people think militaries do, which is fighting foreign wars of territorial conquest to gain access to resources.
So what you're saying is that you and I need to reach out to the No Kings protesters and tell them that they need to go to Venezuela and throw a No Kings protest.
I suppose at this point it's technically a queen, since the new leader, Delcy Rodriguez, is a woman. She was vice president, but she's the president now, and technically it's a queen.
Yeah, so we had No Kings protests in the U.S. because we thought that Donald Trump was a king. But yet, when we took out basically a king, a dictator in Venezuela, they're mad about it.
Yes, but as I've said, if Trump cured cancer, they'd riot and protest in the streets about being allowed to die from their cancers.
All right, we are at the end of the show. As always, it is time for our blind ranking. Matt, give me the topic and fire away.
Well, the topic is media companies. How you want to rank it based on trustworthiness or how often you use that website or TV channel as a source, that's up to you. Just let me know.
I'm going to go on trustworthiness.
Trustworthiness, I like that. First up, NBC News.
Oh, boy. NBC News. Let's split the middle and play it safe. Number 3.
Going number 3, okay. Next up, the Wall Street Journal.
All right, off to a bad start. I already wish I could put that higher, but I also don't want to lock up number 2 with that. So I'm going to put the Wall Street Journal at number 4.
Going number 4 there. Okay, the next one up, the New York Times.
Number 5.
Number 5, oh boy.
Yeah, I'm locked in here.
Leaving the good ones for last.
Hopefully.
Your next one up is Fox News.
Oh, man. What's the last one going to be, though? That is the question. All right. I'm going to throw Fox News at number 2 and hope that you're going to give me a good one for number 1.
What good one is left?
I just feel like there's more trustworthiness that could be out there. More of like a central, maybe. I don't know. Fox News is a very right-leaning, and as you've said before, legacy media is just a mouthpiece for the side that they represent.
Well, you're going to be really disappointed in your number 1.
Oh, boy.
CNN.
Oh, man. That's tough.
I knew you were in trouble when you put NBC at 3.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I would have gone Fox 1, Wall Street Journal 2.
Yeah. Well, swing and a miss.
I just don't know what central-leaning, relatively mainstream media company you're talking about. I can't think of any, at least in the U.S.
I would put Newsmax slightly above Fox News. I thought that you might have thrown Newsmax at me.
I would consider that more right-leaning too, though.
It is more right-leaning, but it's not as much of a mouthpiece for the right as Fox News is.
Okay.
That was my reasoning for it.
That wasn't one I was really considering, given I've never seen more than a few minutes or a clip of it here and there. So I was kind of sticking with the more mainstream ones.
Yeah, and that's what I took a chance on. I wasn't sure if you had something like that on there, so that's why I took the chance with putting Fox at 2. But, oh well. That's it for episode 24 of the Republic Brothers podcast. If you're still listening, you are exactly who this podcast is for. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe button and follow along. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. If you agree or disagree with anything we talked about today, drop a comment and let us know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.